Hi everyone, welcome to this session of Covidence, how to turn your protocol into a data extraction framework. My name is Laura Meller and I'm a community manager at Covidence. I'm based in the UK. And I'm joined today by my colleague Ghida Iskandarani and by our guest speaker Ella Fleming from Cochrane. I'll give a brief introduction to the three of us. My background is in academic publishing. I've supported the editorial team of the Cochrane Handbook and I write for the Covidence blog. Ghida Iskandarani is a community manager at Covidence with a background in nursing and experience in evidence-based healthcare research. Ella Fleming is editorial product lead in Cochrane's central executive team. Key to her role is to ensure Cochrane's editorial and methods priorities are reflected in Cochrane's products, processes, and technology. She's co-leading the project to update the format of Cochrane reviews, and she's coordinated the launch of Cochrane's first open access journal, the Cochrane Evidence Synthesis and Methods, which opened for submissions earlier this month. She's previously worked as a publishing manager for methods journals at Springer Nature. Welcome to you both, Ghida and Ella. So just a bit of housekeeping before we begin. Today's session is being run in standard webinar mode. All webinar attendees will be muted. You can ask questions at any time. Please enter those into the questions box, which you'll be able to see on the right-hand side of your screen. And we've got community managers, Razia and Delindia, moderating and answering questions there in the chat. So if there are any questions that we don't have time to answer before the session ends today, we'll follow up with people via email afterwards. Okay, before we start the main session, I'm just going to run a quick poll, which you should be able to see up on your screens now. So if you wouldn't mind filling that in really quickly with your answer before we go on, that would be really appreciated. I'll just leave it for a couple more seconds, but I think most people have completed that now. All right, I've just closed that poll. Thanks very much for your responses there. So I'll go on to the next slide and just give some background about Covidence. Covidence's mission is to change the way the world creates and uses trustworthy knowledge. Our cloud-based platform for screening studies and extracting data is designed to support efficient collaboration and methodological rigor. And the focus of the session today is, of course, data extraction. So I'll go on to the next slide. What we're going to cover today then is the process of data extraction. So we'll explain that. We will then describe the options for data extraction in Covidence. Ghida is going to give a demonstration of data extraction 2, again in Covidence. And then finally, Ella is going to look ahead to the future of data extraction and talk about how managing data is going to be key to producing evidence that can be shared, reused and updated more easily for broader reach and greater impact of all of our research. So that's what we're going to cover. Great. So first of all then, what is data extraction? It's the process of collecting relevant information from studies. So it's really taking from your included studies the information that you need to do whatever analysis you have planned as part of your review. So to do that, you're going to need to use a form. It's a good idea to develop the form at an early stage in the review process. And in fact, many review teams include a sample data extraction form as part of their protocol. And this is good practice because designing the form really belongs to the planning stage of the review ahead of the extraction itself. So the more time you can put in up front, the kind of smoother the process will be for you down the line. So it's all in the planning really. Why do you need a form? It's just to collect the information that you need and only the information that you need in a standardized way. The Cochrane Handbook puts this particularly well. So a good data extraction, a good data collection form should minimize the need to go back to the source documents. Okay, so I'll just go on to the next slide. We divide data extraction here at Covidence into 5 steps, as we like to think of them. So the first one is to plan. So it's the development of the form at the protocol stage of your review. Step 2 is to pilot that form. So once you have a few included studies, you don't need to wait till you've got all of them. You can try out your pilot form and adjust it as needed until you're happy with it. Step 3 is to extract the data. So you might need to make more changes to the form once the extraction proper is underway. And that's a very standard and normal thing to happen as well. We'll show you how to do that in Covidence. The data extraction form is not something that people get right first time. So it's a very standard process for it to be iterative. Step 4 is to compare the data. If you have 2 sets of data, if you've done data extraction in duplicate, there'll need to be a comparison stage where you come to a consensus and produce a consensus set of data. And if you're doing single reviewer extraction, you'll need to check the data that has been extracted. So that's step 4. And then in the final step, step 5, you will export the data in a format that's suited to your next steps. So to help you with all of this, we've included a handout in the webinar today. If you have a look in to the right-hand side of your screen where the questions and the chat box is, you'll see that we've got Covidence's top 5 tips for data extraction. So that is a little worksheet that you can download for your own use. Okay, so that is an outline of the task of data extraction. In Covidence, there are 2 separate tools that can help you to do it. We've got data extraction 1 and data extraction 2, so I'm showing those now in this table. Really, to summarize the differences, the main one is the way in which the form is structured. And I'll show you what I mean by that in the next couple of slides. There's just one more thing to add onto this slide, which is we've got a full comparison of these 2 tools on our knowledge base if you follow this link. And it's possible in also in Covidence if you already have an account. If you don't have a Covidence account, encourage you to sign up for one. Once you are in on the platform, you're able to use a demo review to try out these 2 separate tools. So encourage you to do that as well. It's really important to consider what you need now and what you're going to need next. So what you need now, how do you want your form to look? How do you want it to be structured? And what do you need next? What sort of an export do you need? Where are you planning to take this information after you have downloaded it from Covidence? So things to have a think about. So as I said, the main difference between data extraction 1 and data extraction 2 is how the form is structured, and we're going to look at that now. So this is data extraction 1. It's an example from a review called Vitamin C for the Common Cold. And this form in data extraction 1 is structured around PICO. So that stands for population, interventions, comparisons, and outcome. And I enter these in data extraction 1 by clicking the sections that I've circled here in red. You can see population, interventions, outcomes. So interventions also includes comparisons. So that is essentially the PICO format for data extraction 1. So I can edit these sections within populations, interventions, and outcomes to fit my particular review topic, my specific outcomes. But what I can't change is the basic structure we see in this column. It's fixed to the standard design, which is the PICO framework. Okay, unlike data extraction 2, which is my next slide, this data extraction is completely flexible. So this is an example. It's the same review. It's actually the same study in the same review. But in data extraction 2, what you'll see as your tool to use is what you can see here in the top left of the form. And the form is driven by the template, which I've overlaid in the bottom right of this slide. So using this template, you can define your own framework. It doesn't have to be PICO. It can be anything that you like. So as I say, this is the same study and the same review as the slide before when I gave the example of data extraction 1. So as it turns out, we do have a PICO framework here, even though we're using data extraction 2. But the point that I really want to make is that the structure could be whatever you want it to be using data extraction 2. It's completely customizable. So say, for example, you have a scoping review, a qualitative review, a literature review, etc. You don't want to use a PICO format, you want to use something else. The great thing about data extraction 2 is that you're able to do that. So before I hand over to Gida, who's going to demonstrate data extraction 2, I want to just stress that we continue to develop data extraction 1. We are working on it actively, and we're adding new functionality to it all the time. Most recently, we added the ability to enter contrast level data or effect estimates. And we're planning some separate training activities on data extraction 1. So if that's what you're interested in, please stay tuned and we'll publicize that soon. There's a final slide here before Ella gets underway with her demo, which is some resources about data extraction 1 and 2. So those are included there for your information.
Thank you, Laura. So, as Laura indicated earlier, the starting point for designing a data extraction form is the review question. And if you have one, the research plan or a protocol. Also, as you previously mentioned, Laura, the basic process of setting up a data extraction can be really summarized and organized into 5 steps: planning, piloting, extracting your data, comparing and resolving your consensus and conflicts, and finally exporting your data. So what I will just do in a few minutes is demonstrate those 5 steps using our extraction 2.0 version in Covidence. And this is based on a framework which is used usually in clinical medicine or for intervention reviews, the PICO framework. So as you can see, we've picked here an intervention review protocol from a Cochrane intervention review. And for the purpose of this demo, we've also built the DE template in extraction 2.0 to be very much similar to assessing the effectiveness of the actual protocol. So this protocol you're seeing here was as assessing the effectiveness of vitamin C for preventing and treating the common cold and the upper respiratory tract infections. So from this protocol, I will use the information from here and see what is required from myself to extract the data from. So technically, once the protocol is set, what you really look at is, and you'll focus on, is the methods design. So what you really want to extract from anything to do with your study characteristics, from the study design, from the population, from your interventions or their study arms, and finally the outcome of interest. So again, this is a protocol based on an intervention review and based on the PICO framework. So this is what we're going to tackle. This is the form that we will be interested in. Our data extraction template will really need to be built to be able to reflect that we will be able to extract the data of the methods, which we might require the information on the study design, the total duration of the study, number of study centers, location, and so on, and also the participants, and that could be from the number of participants, randomized general characteristics like their age, gender, race, ethnicity. So it depends what you really have in the protocol, and also interventions. So what are my interventions? What are my study arms? And it could be also, by study arms, I mean the intervention and the comparison or the control. And what are my outcomes? So what do I really need to extract about my outcomes? Are there some measurement tools that I need to also extract information on? The study results, is it the effect estimate, is it an arm level data on different time points, and so on. So this all needs to be based on your protocol or your research plan, and then your data extraction templates need to be based on this example, and then, sorry, on your protocol. And in this particular example here, so the participants will, the protocol is looking at the participants of all ages, adults and children, in randomized control trials. My intervention which is the treatment you are investigating. In this case, we will be looking at the effectiveness of intake of vitamin C. And in the case here as well, my comparison, which usually is again the treatment that you want to compare your intervention with. In this example, we were going to look at the effectiveness of vitamin C daily versus the placebo. So placebo is my comparison or control. And finally, my outcomes could be divided into primary outcomes, secondary outcomes. And in this particular example, we will look for the outcomes that will measure the incidence, which are the participants reporting a cold in a study period. And the second one could be a duration or average age of illness. And finally, severity of illness reported by severity score. So now I'm going to switch to the Covidence platform. So as you can see, this is a review that is already in progress. It's the vitamin C for the common cold, and it's just been built for the purpose of this demo. So what we usually see once we log in a review in Covidence is the three main stages of screening, from title and abstract to full text review, and finally the last stage is the extraction section. And during extraction, you'll typically have a much smaller set of reference here than in the previous stages. And what we're going to look at, so once I click continue, and what we're going to look at now is our data extraction 2.0 version. So again, our data extraction template now will be based on the protocol that we just seen earlier. And whenever you just log into the extraction section as well, or which is 2.0 in Covidence, what you'll always see is on the left side is your included studies. So these studies that you've actually voted on to include at the full text review stage. So these will appear here, and the title with the full text attached to them on the left side. Anything on the right hand side will show you the actual status, extraction status. And this means that you will see what you have extracted or in the process of extracting, but also whether someone else is extracting and when did the last time they accessed the form, and so on. And in extraction 2.0, the actual template creation step is separate. So you won't be able to start extracting your data from your included studies until you have created and published one or both of your data extraction and quality assessment templates. So the first time I log into this review extraction section, these two buttons will be blue and indicating that I need to set the form and publish them, so they can then be available for other, the forms will be available next to the included study to extract the data. So they will turn white, as you can see here, once they've actually been published. And again, it doesn't have to be both of them. It could be one or both of these templates. So for the purpose of this webinar, we're focusing on the data extraction template. So I will go into the data extraction template now, and I'll show you how this would look like. So once you log in as well on a data extraction template in Covidence Extraction 2.0, you will see a basic template here that is built into the system. And it is completely customizable, as Laura as well previously indicated. You will be able to either build on the same template, or you can always start from scratch here by clicking on this link. So this will wipe the whole template and you can start over. However, you can always build on this template, and again, building on this template or starting from scratch, all needs to be what's important, that you want to build a form or a template from your data extraction to be relevant to your PICA framework that you just decided to follow. And again, for the purpose of this demo, we are going to focus on this protocol, the vitamin C, and its effectiveness with the common cold. So what's important that the template capture the information required from your protocol. And of course, what you can start thinking of is how I need to set up my form to be really relevant or compatible to my P, which is my population intervention, for my I, and C for my comparator, and finally my outcome of interest. So the first time you log in, and if you decided to go with the form, you will see that they're going to be first section, which is requiring you to enter data on the general information about, let's say, the author's last name, their institution, more about the study information, which is from the methods section, more about the country, the study design, and so on. So you can keep that as is if you are actually interested in extracting data on these relevant fields. And then if you want to delete any of them, you can do. So this is how customizable it can be. So you don't need to always start from scratch, but you can also build on this or delete, as you can see I'm doing. You can always click the plus symbol to add more headings, subheadings, text fields, single choice options, checkboxes for multiple choice options, and finally custom tables. So now moving back to the PICO framework, the PICO framework. So as you can see, the actual template is built accordingly to that. So the first heading you'll see is the participants, which is my population of interest. This is my first heading, and you could still choose to really keep the sample size here that you're interested to actually capture the total sample size in this form. More about the population description, more about which requires your inclusion and exclusion criteria. And then for the purpose of this particular demo, I actually created the table here. As you can see, a custom table. I use this feature to be able to build a table to capture the characteristics of the baseline characteristics of my participants. So back in my protocol, it was noted that we're interested to assess or extract the data on the average age, male, percentage, race, and weight, and BMI for both of my study arms, the placebo and vitamin C. So I've used the custom table in this case. I just clicked on that, and I had on the left side, as you can see, you'll see the columns here that we were able to, let's say in this case, I used the columns to enter my study arms, and then the rows for the characteristics of my participants. So what I'm technically using this table for is to be able to capture all of this information about my participants in the both study or in different study arms. So the characteristics of my participants in the vitamin C arm and the characteristics of my participants in the control arm. Also, if you want or you're interested in the method of recruitment of participants, you can still, again, use that as well. So for the custom table, this was just built in for the purpose of this demo, but usually you'll have everything else except for the custom tables. You can set them up from scratch. So next is the interventions. And this is where it's also meant for me, the study arm. So it will include both my actual intervention, which is in this case my vitamin C, but also the actual control or comparison, or my second study arm, which is the placebo in this case. So I also used for this demo the option to create more table, and this time to capture the characteristics of my interventions. So in this case, I'm probably interested to from my protocol as well. This is all information has to be relevant to your protocol and or your data extraction plan, research plan, that you are interested to extract data on these elements from different for my study arms. So in this case, I'm interested to really capture information on the type, components, setting, the dose and frequency of either of these interventions, and so on, and how they're delivered, the exposure duration, and so on. So it could be anything. And again, you can use as many columns and many rows, and you can delete if necessary. And maybe I'm interested to know more about the withdrawals and exclusion as well in different study arms. So that could also be as well tables could be created for this purpose. And finally, you'll see this section for your study outcomes. So in this case, again, you might want to list all their primary in the template just to make it more easy to see, and secondary outcomes as well, and make sure that everyone from the team is aware of which are the primary, which are the secondary. But then you can use more characteristics, the tables to build on, let's say, the characteristics of my outcomes, but also most importantly, you can use them to actually build the tables for you to capture your study results. And it could be, again, the arm level data, as you can see. So for this purpose, the incidence outcome is a dichotomous outcome. I'm interested about to know the participant number with a cold over the total number, and this is within an 8 weeks time point. So I created a table only for the 8 weeks time point. I needed to, let's say I needed to actually know more information at the 12th week, after 12 weeks as well. So I built the similar table using the actual same events in total and for the 12 weeks time point. And finally, I built as well, let's say I'm interested to extract data on the risk ratio in this case, and about vitamin C versus placebo. For this outcome, the incidence at 8 weeks, I also can build that, use this for this purpose, mentioning more information about my R risk ratio and the lower confidence interval and the upper confidence interval. And as you can see, once you click on the table, you'll be able to see how I use the columns and rows for this purpose as well. So you can come back and edit this template as many times as you'd like, and you can do that before and after you started work on your extraction. Any section you will add will be applied to the form for all the references. So just if you remove any sections from the form, this will also delete the extracted data for those sections. So what's also useful to know is that once you're building this template, you also have the chance to get the chance to see a preview, as you can see on the right-hand side, how the form will look like for the reviewers once you actually publish it. So once you publish it, this is what you will appear to the other members of your team. This is what they will actually see once they actually extract the data of their included studies. So once I finalize or made changes to my data extraction, you can always save it as a draft, but then once you finalize and you made the final decision that I need to proceed with this template for now, you can then click the publish button here, and then this will make it available to the other reviewers on your team. So now back to the slides. My next one is following the second step with the on the 5-step that we just mentioned earlier. The next step is to test drive or pilot the new form on a few studies once you've actually finalized the template. And this is to check that it works as intended. If the test data come back as per your expectation, the form is performing well. If some test data is wide of the mark, you have a useful opportunity to explore the reasons for this and improve the form. And you might ask questions like, is the form capturing everything you need? And is it capturing the data you don't need? Are any of the questions potentially confusing or open to interpretation? Does it provide data in a form that can be utilized according to your research plan? This testing phase or piloting can be repeated until the team is satisfied that the form is fit for purpose. And it's always important to train individual reviewers at the pilot stage and throughout the extraction process to ensure that they understand the requirements and code data in exactly the same way. And discrepancies between reviewers that persist once they are trained could indicate that the form is still not clear enough to gather data reliably. So in Covidence, changes to the data extraction, again, as I said earlier, can be made at any time, not only during the pilot, but also once the extraction is way underway. So you'll just get a warning similar to this one if any studies have been completed. So once you attempt to republish and click the let's say you made any changes, you might just delete it or added more fields or headings, and you needed to republish and you will click on the publish button again, this warning will appear saying that you've actually completed some studies, or some studies in your extraction are still in progress, and that to let you know that updating the template will apply the changes to them all. And might be that few of your studies that are, let's say, in the consensus stage or a complete stage will move back to the in progress. And so you will need to make some more further changes to these studies in order for them to proceed into the next stage again. So this is something just to be aware of. So with the form ready to go, you'll now use it to transfer the data safely from the study reports into the review. So although, again, the specifics will be different, each review will likely extract data on the following aspects, which are the participants, interventions, their comparisons, and finally the outcomes. And this is, again, if they're following the PICO framework that we're just using at the moment, and especially that is based for intervention reviews. So going back to the template here, so once I've published it, I'm not going to do now anything, just go back to the form. So once you have that ready, like you've published your data extraction as well as your quality or one of them, and it's all based on your satisfaction, then this will make it available for other reviewers and your team to start extracting. So how they will really know that they will be able to extract. So the first time you publish the templates, a blue button similar to this one, begin extraction. I will choose this one. So the begin extraction in this case will appear. This blue begin extraction will appear on any study in your extraction section. And once you click on it, and this is again, once you publish your template, you will then be able to see the actual data extraction form that you just created. And of course, on the left side, always you'll see a PDF of your included study. And this means that you'll be able to view this study PDF while you're extracting your data. And you can always try to copy and paste and so on and click and do any kind of extraction work on this form. And of course, if you've published also a quality assessment form, you'll also see that here, and you can toggle between the two, as you can see here. So once you've completed both yourself and the other reviewer, you've completed extracting your data. And so let's say you've actually finalized it. So let's say you are still extracting, you can always save and come back to it. But once you finalized it, you need to send it for consensus. So once you and your co-reviewer have done that, again, we're doing a dual extraction mode. So we're doing extraction in duplicate. And then what this means is when you both send in the consensus, then the study will move to the consensus required stage here, which would make us reach the fourth step, which is compare and reaching consensus. Sorry. So data can be compared by two reviewers. And again, this is if you're doing data extraction in duplicate, and discrepancies must be resolved and a consensus reached. It's always a good practice to specify in advance the process for resolving the conflicts among the reviewers and to keep a record of these disagreements. So once you decide that you're ready to complete the form and make it available for your co-reviewer or a third reviewer, let's say for resolving the consensus, then it will show next to a begin consensus button. So I will flip again, and you will be able to see similar to this screenshot, what I'm just going to show it to you shortly. So now in the consensus required section, I click on the begin consensus. You will see now a table with 3 columns, which means you'll see a final decision column, a column for reviewer 1 and reviewer 2, and where the answers for both reviewers are exactly the same. As you can see, the final decision will be automatically populated. You don't need to do anything. However, once there's a discrepancy or a conflict, this will be highlighted in purple, as you can see, with a decision required here. So I can select then which data to resolve the conflict. You need to select which data I want to have as the final data, and that you can do that. Let's say you are maybe once you've probably reviewed the PDF and you're happy with a reviewer one's answer, you can click on that and this will populate your answer. If you're not happy with any of these answers, you can always override that and click your answer here, as you can see. So that's all done. Once it's all done, you can always save it and come back. Let's say if you're not done with it, and again, you'll also see the actual number of conflicts here at the top right. This is, of course, again, if you have both data extraction and quality assessment, that might be the number of conflicts in both forms. So this is something just to be aware of. And once you feel that you're ready, the form is ready, then you can click complete. So I'm going to click complete just to show you. So this means that I, myself, and my colleague, a third reviewer has resolved the consensus of myself and my other colleague. And then once the third reviewer or anyone, it depends how the conflict resolution is being made. Then once you click on the complete, this makes it move to the study moves into the complete section here in the extraction 2.0, where you'll be able to view the final data, but also export that data. So this will lead us to the last actually a part or section or step in your data extraction, which is the exporting your data. So with conflicts now resolved, it's now time to parcel up the consensus data and download it from Covidence. From extraction 2.0, again, once you've completed extracting your data and reached a consensus, a CSV export format is available to export the data that has been gathered during the data extraction process. That facilitates import of extracted data into statistical program, such as Stata, R, and SPSS. You can access it from the export function on the review summary page. And once you're here, you'll see that you have several options for the data you want to export. So the default is the consensus data only, but you can see that there are several other options, as you can see, and you can choose, let's say, to export also in addition to the consensus data, the individual data of the other reviewers. So it's all up to you which option, but the only format we support in 2.0 at the moment is the exporting to a CSV format, which will eventually open in an Excel. Finally, something just to also highlight is the exporting in 1.0 is a bit different, that because we have an additional features and how to export your data from 1.0 extraction. So there's, as you can see as well from this screenshot, from the export function in Covidence, you'll see if you are in extraction 1.0 that you in addition to the CSV and Excel format, you have a built-in pathway for exporting information in a format that is compatible with Cochrane's Review Manager software, which is RevMan 5. So you can, in this case, export a file that can be then imported directly into RevMan 5. This is the desktop version of RevMan, but also you'll see if now an option to export your data into RevMan Web. And Covidence then, in this case, will produce 4 CSVs to import into RevMan Web for that, and then you will use these CSVs to import into RevMan Web. So the Covidence upload in this case works with a study-centric data feature in RevMan Web. And study-centric data is the process of adding extracted results data to the studies themselves, so not to the data table for each analysis. It will reduce duplication of data and allow review teams to update meta-analyses automatically in RevMan as new studies are added to the review. So it's part of the work that Cochrane now is doing, and to unlock the potential of data in our reviews. And to tell us more about that, I will now hand over to our guest speaker, Ella.
Thank you so much. Next slide, please. So now that we've heard a little bit about how we extract data, I'm going to talk a little bit more about why it's so important, and not just why it's important for your specific review. So data have so much potential, and this has been facilitated by the open science movement, which has advocated for increased access to data sets, as well as developments to digital technologies and tools that have opened up a lot of opportunities for how we share and use data. So what are some of those potentials? So first, we have the ability to have more structured data and more streamlined data flows. And so I'm coming from a Cochrane perspective here. We're developing a new, shorter, more focused review format, which has improved data management and transparency within the review. So this refreshed format is lighter on structure within the review itself, and that inevitably pushes structure to where it's needed most. So it's not the results section, it's not the discussion section, it's in the data. And creating standardized structures around the studies, the data, and associated synthesis is going to help us build products and systems to be able to connect patients and healthcare practitioners with evidence. And just coming back to the how, so if you have, we've been talking about having a well-informed and piloted data extraction form with your data organized and structured in a useful way. If we do this, this will really improve your experience through all the stages of a systematic review because it improves that data flow. So, for example, it will facilitate your analyses, your interpretation of the data, and quality assurance processes. The second potential is around the data associated with studies in a review, is particularly around PICO, so PICO elements, the population intervention comparisons and outcomes, and the potential that they have to link evidence through the evidence ecosystem. So Cochrane reviews themselves are PICO annotated. So you can search for different reviews within our database on specific PICO elements. So for example, I could search for all reviews in asthma. And this type of annotation has the potential to link throughout that evidence ecosystem. So from your primary research registration record to published articles, to data sets, systematic reviews, and ultimately to guidelines as well. And if you have this annotation and this linking, it can improve evidence surveillance or horizon scanning. So for example, if I'm a systematic reviewer in the asthma field, I could keep an eye on all new trials relevant to asthma that are being registered so that I can plan to update my review accordingly. And it also improves opportunities for prospective meta-analysis and developing relationships between trialists and systematic reviewers that can improve the efficiency of the systematic review production process overall. So third, click please, is our ability to maintain living evidence. So with improved management and transparency of your data, and with what we're doing at Cochrane of a shorter, more focused review, living evidence and updating reviews when new evidence becomes available is going to be much easier because your data and analyses can be updated more quickly and there'll be less text within the review that needs changing. And with more structure around data, this also opens up opportunities for more automation or semi-automation. And finally, the last potential is around unlocking, about unlocking new ways of sharing and using data. So for example, a lot of guideline developers are commissioning evidence synthesis or systematic reviews, but they don't necessarily want or need the full article. And actually what they do want is a data profile or an evidence profile that will be more useful to them than a fully written up review. And what we're seeing is more users who use the research, who use the evidence we produce in our systematic reviews, they want more tailored and personalised outputs that meet their needs. And a lot of technological developments are helping facilitate this. And in Cochrane, we're investigating new ways of sharing data and content, both via the Cochrane Library and via RevMan, and building on work around data management, PICO annotation, and study curation. Next slide. Thanks. So now that we have spoken about some of the whys, I wanted to briefly highlight some of the things that Cochrane, in collaboration with Covidence and some of our other partners, are doing to build that foundation for better data management. So as I mentioned, this new shorter review format in Cochrane has improved data management structures and features, and these are going to be released in stages in 2023. And there was actually a webinar from Cochrane a few weeks ago with more details about this project, so I'll pop a link to that in the chat once I've finished speaking. And so the main developments that we'll be concentrating on next year are first around the ability to move data between tools. So this is fundamental to improve data management and also improves your experience as an author and reduces the risk of human error from copy and pasting. And as we've seen on one of the earlier slides from Gita, that the Covidence 1 has an export that's compatible with importing into RevMan Web. And authors can also import into RevMan Web from Excel. Second, these data imports are compatible with new data management structures in RevMan Web, which are centered around the data associated with each study. So I think it was mentioned earlier, it's referred to sometimes as study-centric data. And this is a feature that can be enabled upon request at the moment. And it's worth highlighting that with this structure in RevMan, it helps with your planning, because during protocol development, you can define the inclusion criteria for each analysis, including the PICO for each analysis. And then if you use the data import, RevMan does the rest. And defining your PICO at the synthesis level at the protocol stage is really critical for designing your data extraction form and facilitating that whole process of completing your review. Third, all of this, so the data from the data extraction plus the analyses data in RevMan and the references, etc., are going to form the basis of a standard data package associated with a Cochrane review, which will help with data transparency. Fourth, having this data package, again, as I've mentioned, having this data package will help improve transparency around how data are managed and transformed, but it also facilitates basic data reuse. So, for example, you might be an author who wants to reuse study data across different reviews, or you might be an author who wants to do additional statistical analyses in different statistical software such as Stata or R. And this data package will facilitate that. Or you might be a guideline developer who wants to delve into the data associated with the review, and you'll be able to do that as well. And then fifth and finally, we've already touched on the importance of PICO, especially for intervention reviews. And as a step further, Cochrane and Covidence and others are working on the idea of having controlled vocabulary for PICO and other study characteristics, which is future development work, and that will further increase the potential of the data associated with our reviews. And with that, I think I'm handing over to Laura and Gita for questions.
Thank you, Ella. That was great. Really interesting to hear about what's planned and what we can achieve with our data when we think about what we want to achieve with our data, if you like, and really sort of plan it from the beginning, which I think has really been our overarching message today. Ella's going to take us through a few questions that have come in and that we hope will be of use to, sorry, not Ella, Gita is going to take us through some questions that have come in that might be of use to the wider group. So we'll just take those now in as many as we can before the hour.
Thanks, Laura. I think so. I'm going through some of the questions, and I can see few. There are just that are the same, and one of them is it possible to have more than one quality assessment tool at the same time? Example, a quality assessment for randomized controlled trials and cohort studies. So yeah, we haven't covered the quality assessment, but yes, this is a very, very common question. At the moment, what we can do is we have one quality assessment template as similar to the data extraction template, but what you can do in this same template or form, build multiple quality assessment tools. So the actual default template that or quality assessment template that we have in Covidence is the Cochrane Covidence version 1.0. So since of course the template is customizable, you can either delete that and probably choose another quality assessment tool for your randomized control trials, but on the same template also build the one or the other quality assessment tool to assess the quality of your cohort or observational studies. So yes, this is possible. And a second question that also there was a few questions about it. Can the data extraction be done by one reviewer alone for a scoping review, or is a minimum of 2 reviewers required? So this is more specific to scoping, but also could be for any type of reviews, because 2.0 extraction supports any type of review. So this is not only relevant for intervention reviews, only for the purpose of this demo that we wanted to show how this would look like for a PICO framework or intervention review, but definitely can be used for a scoping review and other types of reviews. And also, yes, we support one reviewer extraction as well in 2.0, and this can be changed in the settings of the review. and to a single reviewer extraction, you will only receive, instead of 3 columns on the consensus, because there will not be consensus, there will be only checking. So there will be an extra column for you to check your data, or probably someone else, if you choose to also check your data. So yes, this is also possible, and not only for scoping review, for any type of reviews using 2.0. Okay, and there was a question how this would export from 2.0, the tables, how would they export from extraction 2.0? So anything now at the moment that are exporting from the extraction 2.0 in CSV format will all export in separate columns. So what you'll see on the in rows is the actual, let's say, the study name or study ID, and the rest of your fields and custom tables and so on will be all in separate column. And of course, as well, that the work is still also undergoing by our product and engineering team, not only on 1.0 but also on the 2.0, and the export functionality from as a CSV will also be different in the coming few months, and this is definitely something that we will let you all know about once that's released. So at the moment, this is how the only way that they all the information export is in separate columns, but then this is something we're improving as well. And yeah, so okay. Okay, there was a question about, is it possible to have different extraction templates for one review? One including quantitative, one including qualitative. So this is similar to the quality assessment. In the same template, you can build 2 templates at the same time. So one for only, let's say, a template to capture the studies, for extracting the data for the studies reporting in quantitative, let's say, and the other template for qualitative study. It will be, the only drawback about that is when you export your data, let's say you're actually extracting your data on a quality assessment for the qualitative studies. So you will leave all the empty fields that are referring to the quantitative studies. So this is a drawback in this case, that you'll have empty fields when you export Excel, I mean to CSV, which will open in Excel. So this is something that only is not ideal. But if you want, then once you export your data and then clean your Excel and probably delete all these empty fields, that is also a good workaround. Yeah. So.
I can see there's another question here, which is, can you create data extraction templates in Covidence so that you can reuse them, not have to redo them again for different reviews, I think is the question. So at the moment, it isn't possible to do that. You need to set up a review, an extraction template for each review. And if you want to reuse that in a separate project, separate Covidence review, then you would have to, unfortunately, start again with the template and build it again in the new review. As you can imagine, this is a question that we get asked quite a lot, and it is on our roadmap for improvements to produce something that you can take away and use, because you'll have invested quite a bit of time in setting the form up, that you're then able to take it and apply it to other projects. But unfortunately, at the moment, that's not possible. Okay, have we got time for 1 or 2 more questions? Is there anything we can just answer quickly while people are still on the line?
Okay. Okay, and there's last question. Is it possible to only double extract and get a consensus on certain data items? In our review, we plan dual extraction for numerical outcome data, but not descriptive data on the study population characteristics. Thank you. So yes, I mean, it is possible to, let's say, start in dual extraction mode, and then this will require 2 reviewers to extract the data on the same study, and then have a 3rd reviewer finalize the consensus on certain items, or maybe on whatever you actually extract as in dual. And then if you plan to switch to single reviewer extraction afterwards, you can still do that as well. So anything that was, however, that was extracted in dual mode will be switched to a single reviewer extraction.
Okay.
Yeah. So if now that we're close to the hour, we will definitely follow up with the rest, whoever that we didn't really get to with the questions. Definitely we will follow up with you via email. And again, a final reminder that the actual webinar is actually is recorded, so you will receive a recording of this webinar the next day, usually within 24 hours from the session. And also definitely we will provide the handout for the 5 steps and the slides of this webinar on our knowledge base, and we'll also we'll let you know and notify that. And again, of course, sorry, we have once you also receive the slides and you will see them on the knowledge base, you will have also here's different resources on data extraction that you can also check, and few of them are from Cochrane handbooks, few of them from the our Covidence blog and other resources as well. And this is all relevant to the data extraction. And of course, if you have any further inquiries regarding data extraction 2.0 or 1.0 or anything regarding data extraction or any question about the functionalities of Covidence, please feel free to always contact myself and the rest of the community management team at support@covidence.org.
Thanks, Gida. Right, well, we're at time, so it just remains for me to thank you all for attending today. Thank you to our speakers. Thank you to Razia and Delindia on the questions. If you don't already have a Covidence account, you can sign up on our website. You can follow us on Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook, all the usual places. Special thanks to Ella Fleming, our guest speaker from Cochrane. Sorry, it was great to hear from you. And thank you very much, everybody. Enjoy the rest of your day.